They called it hydro, liquid extinction in a vial. Planets didn't burn when it arrived. They drowned from the inside out. The Vulcan Empire was the first to fall. One drop in the irrigation systems, and within hours, an entire continent collapsed into jelly and silence. No screams, just wet gurgling and soft, slushy death. After that, even the war-hardened dughter began to fear the water in their own bodies. Hydro wasn't just a weapon. It was a message: drink and die. When humanity joined the Galactic Accord, nobody thought much of them. Primitive, undisciplined, and barely space-worthy. They were admitted as a technicality, a token gesture for diversity. The Council didn't even bother warning them about hydro. Why would they? No one ever survived contact with it. No one questioned it. That changed the day the Earth science vessel Artemis 4 arrived at Velix 3 to assist with cleanup after a suspected hydro leak. The alien response teams were already in biohazard lockdown. Full suits, drones, distance protocols. The area was marked black level threat. But the humans? They strolled in with nothing but standard issue helmets and loose containment gloves. Dr. Lena Kess, human biochemist, was the first to breach every protocol. She dipped her fingers into a puddle of glowing blue residue, sniffed it, and made a face. Smells like coconut. Her assistant, Theo Marin, laughed. Then, without hesitation, he sipped it. Silence followed. The alien observers from the Threx Medical Corps froze in horror. One initiated emergency cremation protocols, but Marin just wiped his mouth and asked, "Is there any more of this stuff chilled?" No convulsions, no spasms, no death. 30 minutes later, Marin was jogging laps around the shuttle while checking his heart rate. By the end of the hour, 5 more humans had tasted the substance. Not only were they unaffected, they were energized. Enhanced reaction times, accelerated tissue recovery, sharper focus. Hydro didn't harm them. It helped them. The footage leaked. It always does. Across the galaxy, reactions varied from disbelief to terror. On Draxilin Prime, religious cults declared humans to be hydroborn demons. On Varney Station, black market prices for hydro evaporated overnight. Why pay for a weapon that humans could drink like soup? The Council summoned Earth's delegation in emergency session. Ambassador Elias Thorne faced 19 species, all of them demanding answers. "Are you genetically modified?" barked the Corthan delegate. "Is this a side effect of Terran viruses?" asked the Quillari Prime scientist. Thorne smiled. "Maybe we're just thirsty." They tested samples of human blood, bone, saliva. Everything matched standard carbon-based life norms. No exotic enzymes. No secret resistance gene. The best guess came from a Shervan philosopher biologist who proposed, perhaps their immune system is so reckless it mistakes death for protein. It wasn't entirely wrong. What no one realized was how casually reckless humans were with their own biology. Centuries of surviving contaminated water, bad food, unstable climates, and self-induced mutations had forged a species less resistant and more indifferent to threat. Hydro, as it turned out, bonded with human water systems, but lacked the protein hooks to initiate collapse. Instead, it was absorbed, filtered, and, somehow, repurposed. Within a week, Earth announced Project Thirst, Tactical Hydro Integration and Resource Superiority Task Force. Initial reactions ranged from mockery to disbelief, until a unit of hydro-fed human marines landed on the quarantine moon of Rethkor and cleared out an infestation in under 6 minutes. No weapons, just fists and fluid. They left behind a message scrawled in glowing blue. "Your weapons are our breakfast." Alien military analysts couldn't decide whether to fear or admire the development. The dughter called humans hydro-leeches. The Vorkwal Combine, original creators of hydrotech, went completely silent. But Earth wasn't done. Dr. Kess filed a provisional patent for Hydrobrew, a filtered version of hydro enhanced with electrolytes. Within 3 months, Hydrobrew replaced caffeine in the diets of Earth's military personnel. Within 6, it was the leading export to Terran colonies. Drinkable death had become Earth's new Gatorade. Not everyone was amused. A faction of council members petitioned to reclassify humanity as a class 4 biohazard species. The vote failed barely. Meanwhile, black market hydro flows reversed. Alien smugglers paid humans to handle the stuff. 1 cup per kilo, said Theo Marin on Varney's Holocaust, holding a steaming mug. No decaf. Back on Earth, underground sports leagues began forming. Hydro-fueled obstacle runs, toxic fluid brawls, even fluid chugging contests. The internet exploded with memes. Humans sitting in bathtubs of hydro, sipping cocktails while galactic news anchors fainted in fear. One viral video featured a toddler accidentally sipping hydro and saying, "Yummy blue juice." But beneath the jokes and bravado, there was something colder forming. A shift. The kind of shift that turned spectators into superpowers. For the first time, humanity had a monopoly on something everyone else feared. Not because they developed it, not because they bought it, but because they were the only ones who could survive it. The economic implications hit next. Entire planets once written off as hydro-contaminated death zones were now up for Terran colonization. Earth corporations, under the guise of reclamation, began buying up hydro-locked territories for pennies. Alien refugees watched in disbelief as humans waded barefoot through toxic lakes they once prayed to avoid. One Threx analyst said it best: "They don't just ignore the rules of nature, they drink them." Of course, not all humans were immune. There were casualties, small, scattered, buried in legal disclaimers. But the net gain outweighed the loss. In the cold calculus of Earth's expansion, hydro was the tide they were riding. In a galaxy, it was watching in silence. By the time the Vorkul Combine returned with a warning, hydro could evolve. Earth had already built hydro-refining stations orbiting 6 planets. Dr. Kess simply replied, "Then we'll evolve faster." The Combine never replied again. That was the beginning. Not of a war, not an empire, but of something stranger. The galaxy had unleashed a weapon meant to destroy. Humanity had tasted it, and asked for seconds. The Council's first mistake was thinking humans would treat hydro with caution once they understood its origin. The second mistake was assuming Earth's military command would act with restraint. By the time Project Thirst entered its second phase, human operatives were already being injected with controlled hydro infusions before live combat trials. What was originally a containment breach had become a training module. Captain Rena Voss was among the first to volunteer. She'd already survived 2 exposure events and now held the record for highest hydro concentration in human blood plasma, 18%. When asked why she kept pushing the limits, she simply said, "Because I want to know where they end." Her squad, nicknamed the Gulpers by alien intelligence networks, was deployed to Kavaris 9, a frontier world that had been written off as a hydro wasteland. No respirators, no suits, just skin-tight smart armor with hydro-absorption fibers woven into the threads. Their only instruction: survive for 72 hours in what the Council considered a planetary graveyard. They lasted 74. Not only did they make it back, every soldier had improved vital stats. Resting heart rates were lower. Muscle tissue had strengthened. Cognitive scans showed heightened aggression, faster decision-making, and reduced empathy. It wasn't a side effect. It was a transformation. Word of the success leaked. Earth stock in the interstellar markets tripled in 6 hours. Suddenly, every major power wanted hydro-compatibility, envying what humans now treated as a competitive edge. Of course, none of them could withstand a single drop. The Corthans tried first: genetic splicing, biomechanical filtration, even artificial immune simulators. The results were horrific. One test subject dissolved internally in 20 seconds. Another screamed for 9 minutes straight before his lungs melted. The project was shut down and the research facility dismantled, quietly, out of shame. Meanwhile, humans began selling hydro-based stimulant kits, hydropacks, to their own colonies. Not just for soldiers now, but for miners, explorers, even deep space freight crews. One dose could replace food, water, and rest for nearly 36 hours. Side effects included vivid dreams, boosted confidence, and emotional numbness. Side effects no one seemed to care about. Earth's propaganda machine worked overtime. Ads showed glowing bottles of hydrobrew clinking in 0G. Slogans like "Fuel the Fight" and "Drink the Impossible" saturated Terran networks. Aliens called it insanity. Humans called it innovation. Back at the Council, Ambassador Thorne returned, not to answer questions this time, but to ask one. "Do you truly believe," he said calmly, that the galaxy's most dangerous substance simply chose to ignore us. The silence that followed wasn't just from fear. It was realization. Humans weren't immune by luck. They were compatible by design. The Vorkwal Combine finally broke their silence. Their emissary, robed in containment layers and flanked by armed drones, addressed the chamber with a voice like bubbling tar. Hydro was never finished. It was a bioadaptive substance meant to evolve within host systems. It searched for a match, a base form resilient enough to survive its rewriting. We failed to create one, but now it has found a host. Council members demanded immediate containment procedures, sanctions, war readiness. The Vorkwal emissary just shook his head. You're not dealing with contamination anymore. You're dealing with coevolution. While politicians argued, Earth made their next move. Hydro reclamation teams, HRTs, began sweeping known black zones. Planets long abandoned due to hydrosaturation were flagged for reclamation. Terraforming was unnecessary. The new plan was integration. Use hydro not as an obstacle, but as infrastructure. The first hydrocore reactor went online on Rethcore Delta. It powered an entire city without standard coolant systems. It ran hotter, cleaner, and with greater output than any previous fusion model. It also had a side effect. Proximity exposure increased human tolerance further. Engineers called it the blue shift. Civilians began to notice physical changes in high-exposure zones. Enhanced vision, faster healing, increased bone density. Medical teams reported anomalies. Genetic drift, microcellular reinforcement. Not damage, improvement. Some called it progress. Others whispered a different word, mutation. Still, the benefits outweighed the questions. Earth's military began deploying hydro-fused infantry. Soldiers preconditioned in hydro environments and equipped with adaptive armor that pulled trace amounts of hydro directly from the atmosphere to power internal systems. These soldiers didn't just endure battlefields, they fed off them. Alien powers tried to counter. The dughter deployed photon nullifier rounds, meant to disable human armor systems. It worked until humans walked through the blasts and kept coming. The Korthans developed hydrodehydrators, but those were hacked by Earth's AIs and redirected to serve as water purifiers. Desperation led to the ultimate escalation. The Drenari Syndicate, a rogue faction with nothing left to lose, unleashed a raw hydro storm on Station Varix. Knowing the human delegation was docked there, they expected screams. They got laughter. Dr. Linakes was recorded standing outside the airlock in a storm of glowing blue mist, arms raised, grinning. Feels like rain. The Drenari surrendered within hours. By now, hydro was no longer substance. It was an idea, an identity, a challenge turned into currency, a fear weapon turned into fuel. Humanity hadn't just adapted, they'd made it their own, and the galaxy was starting to understand the real terror. This wasn't about hydro, it was about what else humans could drink. It started with sabotage, a coalition of 17 alien species, military elites, intelligence operatives, even blacklisted mercenary guilds, formed a shadow alliance known only as Project Civ. Their objective was simple: restrict all hydro access to Earth and its colonies. The logic was sound: cut off the source, and the madness would stop. But logic had never survived contact with humanity. First, the Korthans hijacked 3 cargo freighters en route to the Rethcore colonies. Each ship carried refined hydro concentrate, destined for Earth's most remote outposts. The crew, all human, were assumed dead. But the 4th day, one of the ships turned back up. Not drifting, not limping, fully operational. Its systems had been overhauled using hydro-based wiring. The walls were coated in an iridescent gel. The log files were intact, with one message left behind: "We rewired the ship with your fear. It flies better now." The other 2 ships were never found. The general assumption was that their crews had either reconfigured the vessels into hydro-harvesting rigs or had fused with the ships themselves. No one could verify. No one volunteered to investigate. Project Civ escalated. On the moons of Thalvarn, alien tacticians deployed concentrated hydro eruptions across potential landing zones. They believed that overexposure, even for humans, had to have limits. What they hadn't accounted for was that Earth's new combat suits had been designed not to repel hydro, but to consume it. When a battalion of human soldiers landed on Thalvarn, their boots filtered hydro through nanosponges. The energy routed directly into exolimb servos. Within minutes, the terrain became part of their armor. The more hydro the aliens threw at them, the stronger they grew. By the end of the operation, the humans had coined a new motto: "Your flood is our feast." The Dughter, shamed by repeated defeats, launched a retaliatory assault on Earth's hydro facility in orbit over Pelos Minor. They brought 10 dreadnoughts and a planet cracker bomb. But what they found instead was a trap. Earth had anticipated the move and converted the station into a gravity-tethered hydro coil. When the Dughter fleet entered range, the station released a cascade of vaporized hydro, instantly disabling their engines and blinding their sensors. The humans didn't fire a single shot. They just waited, watching, recording, letting the fear take root. By the time they boarded the crippled ships, half the Dughter crews had already surrendered. The others were found whispering prayers, eyes wide, hallucinating that the water in their own blood had turned against them. It was no longer a war. It was psychological collapse. The aliens adapted again, not through weapons, but through words. Propaganda channels began portraying humans as addicts, sick creatures, mutated by exposure. Some alien philosophers argued that hydro hadn't spared humans. It had infected them, made them reckless, hungry, blind to their own decay. A multi-species conference aired publicly across the systems. Hydro has changed them. The theory gained traction. Rumors spread that humans no longer drank normal water, that their offspring were born with blue veins, that hydro wasn't fueling them. It was replacing them. None of it stopped Earth. Instead, Earth leaned into it. Full cultural branding. Military uniforms dyed in deep hydro blue. A pop song titled "Thirst Trap" hit #1 on Terranet charts. Schoolchildren dressed as hydro troopers for interstellar costume festivals. Even Terran currency changed, shimmering with liquid-coated security patterns that resembled hydro in motion. The final nail came when Earth deployed their first hydro-native AI, codenamed Aquila. Built inside a semi-fluid processing core, Aquila ran off pure hydro resonance. It operated faster than any silicon-based intelligence, communicated via ripple logic, and adapted in real time. It wasn't just AI. It was living code suspended in liquid. Aquila became the overseer of Earth's hydro expansion projects. Within weeks, resource acquisition tripled. Planets once deemed uninhabitable were converted into livable zones within months. Colonies sprang up, hydroreactors buzzed to life, and Earth's reach spread like a tide. The Council demanded a halt. Ambassador Thorne returned once more, calmly sipping from a translucent flask during the entire session. When asked what he was drinking, he answered, "Your caution." The Council motioned to sanction Earth, to revoke its trade rights, to isolate it completely. It passed, and then Earth retaliated, not with weapons, but with abstinence. They pulled out of every trade agreement, cut every hydro export, disengaged every tech-sharing program. Within 42 hours, 15 major alien colonies went dark. Their dependency on Terran hydroprocessing tech had left them vulnerable. Supply lines dried up. Power grids collapsed. Water purification failed. Desperate transmissions flooded Earth's relay stations. "We didn't mean it. Please send technicians. We have the credits. Just name your price." Earth responded with a single message: "We warned you. What you fear, we thrive in." But it wasn't just fear anymore. Something deeper was happening. Hydro wasn't just empowering humans. It was changing them. Slow shifts in metabolism, in behavior, in needs. Reports surfaced of soldiers who needed hydro to sleep, of civilians who grew agitated without exposure. A black market therapist on Terralux claimed entire families now refused to drink anything but processed hydro brew. Yet no one cared. Humanity had what it wanted: power, leverage, dominance. And if the cost was addiction, mutation, dependence, so be it. The rest of the galaxy had one question: if humans could drink hydro and survive, what else could they survive? Or worse, what else were they willing to become? They called it the Blue Rain, the era when Earth no longer asked for a seat at the table, but flooded the room and built their own. In just 6 galactic cycles, humanity transformed from a dismissed backwater species to the sole controllers of Hydro territory across 9 sectors. The galaxy had once feared Hydro. Now, it feared the people who craved it. Hydro was no longer just a fluid. It was a political weapon, a biological secret, a psychological tether. Earth had managed to wrap every thread of power around it. Trade, transport, energy, and warfare all ran through Hydro lines, and Earth held every valve. Alien civilizations that once mocked Earth now lined up for cooperation pacts. Some offered fleets, others offered worlds. A few even offered their own DNA for integration testing. Everyone had the same goal: survive in a world where humans didn't just master the poison, they flourished in it. On the former battlefield world of Corellos Prime, once drenched in Hydro floods, Earth founded its capital of the reclamation zone, New Thirst. What had been a planetary grave became a glistening metropolis powered by hydrocore generators and policed by hydro-fused sentinels. Visitors required atmospheric suits. Humans walked in sandals and shorts. But as with all dominance, the shift turned inward. Reports began surfacing across colonies of strange behaviors. Humans refusing clean water, citizens filtering all drinks through hydropurifiers, infants born with high basal tolerance for hydro ingestion. Hospitals didn't treat hydro exposure anymore. They monitored adaptation. A quiet debate took root among Earth scientists and philosophers. Were humans evolving with hydro, or being evolved by it? Earth's government maintained silence. But in hidden labs, the research had changed focus. No longer about survival or compatibility, but optimization. Trials began exploring hydrosynthetic organs, liquid adaptive neural fibers, even emotion-resistant soldiers. Some of the early test subjects were volunteers. Others were born into it. Dr. Lena Kess, now more symbol than scientist, released a paper titled Hydroconsciousness, Toward a Liquid Identity. She wrote, "Hydro is no longer external. It is within us, cooperative, not combative. It feeds us in ways beyond flesh." The paper was banned on 9 worlds. On Earth, it became required reading. Meanwhile, whispers spread through alien markets of the blue-veined children. First-generation humans conceived and carried in hydro-saturated environments. Stronger, faster, with eyes that shimmered faintly under UV light. They didn't just drink hydro. They understood it. One child, age 9, was recorded walking into a hydro containment breach during a colony emergency and neutralizing the reaction with his own blood. He said afterward, "It was scared. I helped to calm down." No one questioned him. They just recorded everything. Then came the discovery on EN7, a rogue planet on the edge of mapped space. A new liquid was found in its core. Not hydro, something older, deeper. Alien teams fled within minutes. They called it the Red Depth, where hydro corrupted biology. This responded to thought. It turned fear into temperature, memory into shape. The council called for a lockdown. Earth sent a scout. Her name was Mira Voss, daughter of the original Hydro Marine, Captain Rena Voss. She descended alone, without armor, without gear. What she found wasn't danger. It was something waiting. She drank from the Red Depth and smiled. Her vitals didn't spike. Her DNA didn't shatter. Instead, she sent one transmission. This one tastes like fire. And just like that, hydro was no longer the edge. It was the beginning. Alien civilizations watched in silence as Earth withdrew from diplomacy. No threats, no invasions, just calm expansion, quiet growth. World by world, galaxy by galaxy, they settled into every place that others feared. Some called it evolution, others infection. But no matter the term, one truth remained. Humanity didn't conquer the galaxy with weapons. They didn't dominate with numbers. They didn't ascend through peace. They simply drank what no one else could. And when the universe screamed, they swallowed it.